The reason why our tattoo lines may not be coming out so good may vary from artist to artist, but may still be within a similar pocket. There are a handful of reasons why our tattoo lines may not be coming out as good as we want, especially in the earlier days of our tattooing journey. These reasons would range from improper technique, improper needle angle, improper needle depth, improper ink flow, improper settings in terms of voltage, not enough experience. They just simply may need more experience working with needle ink and depositing ink into skin. Somewhere within this pocket that I just mentioned is going to be where we are going wrong. So if we are beginning and we are just starting, not getting any results that we are trying to accomplish, this video is for you. Before you continue, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring that bell for me, as I will be bringing more videos like this for you all. Don't forget to also give this video a thumbs up if you find it helpful. Improper technique can be a number of things, from moving too fast, moving too slow. We could just simply have too much ink flow, not enough, bad needle angle, just simply not comfortable with the gear that we are using. So there are many things that can go wrong when we are tattooing. The same thing applies to good tattooing. There are many things that we have to do to create good tattoos. What that means is each and every time we move, we are going to repeat a series of steps that are going to continuously repeat over and over and over until we've accomplished the results that we are wanting to accomplish. Some common improper techniques are going to be moving too fast or moving too slow. Right now I am using the Stay-Lite tattoo machine running at 5 volts even. If I were to move too fast, that would look a little something like this, where I just simply I just don't give the needle enough time to deposit the ink in a clean, solid, consistent manner. So not only am I not getting any saturation, I can't tell the needle size that I am using, so the needle integrity is lost as well. I get a sort of faded appearance, and I am causing more trauma to the skin. So for these obvious reasons, this can definitely be deemed as improper technique. So this right here is probably one of the main reasons why I've seen lines not coming out so great, or when people are first starting, they're struggling. It's just simply improper technique. You could just simply be moving too fast and not understand how ink is deposited into skin. Improper technique on the opposite spectrum of that would be moving too slow, which is going to be very similar results, but just moving too slow. So moving too slow would be something like this. And if this were on human skin, I'm going to be causing scarring, more pain for the client, textured healing, meaning we're going to have like raised results when someone passes their finger over the line, or the person passes a finger over their line. At this rate, it's going to have a sort of texture. We're not supposed to be able to feel ink deposit when it's done healing. It should feel smooth like skin. With this approach, moving too slow, I'm going to get the exact opposite of that. I'm going to get inconsistent healing results as well, because I am depositing way too much ink in this area. Although I did capture the line weight of this needle cartridge over the years, the ink is definitely going to spread tremendously, sacrificing the overall integrity of the entire design. So if I use this technique in this area is going to get really muddy over the years. So that's another reason why this right here would be improper technique. And this can be another reason why we may be experiencing results that we don't want to experience. Bad needle angle could be another reason why we are experiencing results that we don't want. So for example, let's say if I'm holding my needle like this, and this is a 7-round shader from a CNC Police. Well, this right here, since I'm using a round shader, I'm having my needles hit at an awkward angle. So the integrity of the line weight that reflects this cartridge may not be true, just because of that awkward line right there. Awkward angle, forgive me. So you could see with that awkward angle, the results that were produced were tremendously different from this right here. So this appears to be a lot heavier in line weight than this area right here. So if I were to continue over here with appropriate technique, we can see that the integrity of the actual needle cartridge versus the improper angle is completely different. So that right there could be another reason why we may be experiencing bad lines. This right here are two completely different line weights. I'm not sure if you can see at that angle, but these line weights are in fact two different line weights. So for example, if I were to continue with this approach with improper angle throughout the entire tattoo, I'm gonna obviously get fluctuating line weights. These areas may even be more scarred, more trauma for the skin. The client may even experience more pain when applying it with improper technique and an improper angle. So when I have different fluctuating line weights, I cannot expect quality unless those fluctuating line weights are applied intentionally. Here we move too fast and too slow. Here we did it just right a little bit, and over here we have bad needle angle. So you can see with improper technique, improper needle angle, which is also improper technique, we're kind of going nowhere fast. These are highly inconsistent results. The only sort of consistency that I see is the area that I did correctly, which is this small area, which I'm now going to mess up and show you improper needle depth. So let's say we just had bad needle depth to begin with, which can be either too shallow or too deep. Then we're still going to go nowhere fast. So for example, if I'm going to go over this area, let's go too deep on this one. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and press into this fake skin, and you can see I'm using way too much pressure. At this point, this is torture, and I'm also moving way too slow. So we can only anticipate that I'm going to be chewing through the skin and causing loads of unwanted adversities from this sort of application. And not only that, the line weight reflects a little heavier than those around it because of that pressure. Same thing, I'm going to experience inconsistent healing results. The integrity of the line weight is also going to fluctuate throughout the years. More trauma, more pain for the client. Definitely textured healing when it's done completely healing. This right here is exactly what we want to avoid. I know that this is basic and easy to grasp the concept, but it's also easy to overlook when we are starting out. Now, the opposite of going too deep would essentially be going too shallow, which would look a little something like this. So let's just say my needle depth was a little too light. Well, that's going to be the same thing. You can kind of see that my needles are working, but I'm going to get a sort of like faded appearance. I'm not going to get any sort of saturation. On top of that, the integrity of the line weight is also not going to be true to the 7-round shader because all the needles are not hitting at once. And if they do, they're going in and out. They're not depositing enough ink to reflect that integrity. So that is the opposite of improper needle depth. This is going too light. This right here is going too deep. So this right here would have been traumatic on the skin. This right here would have just been traumatic on the eyes and wouldn't have looked good if the entire tattoo was applied with this technique. This would have been very painful for the client to even endure, probably tapped out at some point throughout the tattoo. I hope that you're still with me here because all of these variables that I am taking the time to explain right here do all work together in conjunction, which I am going to share with you and explain how they all work together in one motion as we are tattooing. Another thing that I've seen that contributes to really bad lines is simply improper ink flow. So let's say, for example, if I do this line right here and I know that I'm already running out of ink, but let's say I'm going to go over here onto the next part. This is what inadequate ink flow looks like. So you can kind of see that my ink flow is kind of struggling. Let me use it a little bit more over here so I can get my point across over there. So at this point, I should clearly be going back for some more ink, but I'm not going to. So my technique and everything could be correct as you see, but if I don't have adequate ink flow, then all the needles don't have anything to deposit clean or consistently. So you can kind of see right there that actually wasn't a good demonstration. But as I lose more ink here, the needles begin to hit all together. The thing is, they're all not depositing ink just because I have inadequate ink flow. So now we've reached that area and I'm completely done. But right here is a good example. You can see that this area on this side had more ink, so it deposited ink there, which resulted in inconsistent lines. Although my technique and everything was completely aligned and perfect, my ink flow was not. Therefore, it produced inconsistent results. So I feel it's important to note that it's not just our technique that can lead us to inconsistent results. It's definitely ink flow as well. So this is another moving component that we have to consider when we are creating lines. You're always going to want to make sure that you have enough ink to make it from point A to B, so that way you deposit ink in a clean and consistent manner and you don't have to go back over any areas if you don't have to. Another main thing that can be contributing to bad lines is simply improper settings, whether we have our voltage too low or too high. Somewhere along the way our settings aren't aligned. For example, with the Stay-Lite tattoo machine, it's a 4mm stroke. I'm going to be running at 4 volts. If I'm running at 4 volts but my technique is moving too fast, I'm not going to give my needle enough time to deposit ink. As a beginner, I would think that maybe I need to press down harder to go deeper into the skin, when that's definitely not the case. What I need to do is slow it down, align my hand speed to my voltage, which I'm going to get to here in a moment. But you can kind of see that improper settings, which is 4 volts and at that hand speed, is not correct, as I'm not producing consistent, solid, saturated results. When I wipe away, we see the true integrity of the work that I did, which is not consistent by any stretch. This is not acceptable. Let's say if I did the exact opposite of that and I took 4 volts, let's say up to 6 volts, and I moved too slow, this would definitely be the opposite side of that spectrum. So if I start right here, and my machine is just working away, but I'm moving at this pace, this would also be improper settings for my hand speed. So this right here is one of the main reasons that I've seen contribute to bad lines. At this rate, I'm going to have to go ahead and move slower, causing more pain to the client. Definitely going to get inconsistent healing results, definitely textured raising, scarring potentially. You get the idea. So improper settings, not knowing what voltage to use with the machine that I am using, is definitely going to contribute to the work that we are able to produce. Now, I'm sure there's going to be more to it in terms of why we're not getting the results that we want. But from my experience, one of the last reasons why I've experienced or seen people not getting the results that they want when it comes to their tattooing is just simply not enough experience, which is completely okay. That's exactly what fake skin is for. We just simply have to go back to the basics and take it back to the top block, practice those basics, learn the fundamentals, and really gain a good understanding as to how ink is deposited into skin with needles. I feel like being patient with this slow burn process is important. I feel like we often lose sight of that. It in fact is a slow burn process. Tattooing is something that requires patience, time, effort, and care. We have to be patient with it, and we have to work with the abilities that we have. Now, this applies to all techniques. It's not just lining. This would apply to shading, dot work, packing, any technique that we're trying to learn within tattooing. Most of the reasons why we may not be accomplishing whatever technique we are trying to accomplish is going to fit within one of these pockets that I'm explaining here to you in this video. Now, before we conclude this video, I want to explain my workflow here. And I'm going to explain step by step on how I go about creating consistent lines each and every time. If you find this useful, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, ring that bell for me, and thumbs up this video. I genuinely appreciate your support. Here we go. I'm going to explain step by step. There's like a series of, I guess, 9 to 10 different variables that I am considering each and every time I create a line. It doesn't matter if it's a shorter line or a longer line. So step 1, I'm definitely going to identify my point A and B. I need to know where I am going. I need to know what I am tattooing before I even begin tattooing. So I'm going to identify my point A and B. For this demonstration, I'm going to start with this area right here. So my A point is going to be right here, and then my B point is going to be over here. Next thing that I need to do after I've identified my point A and B, which is step 1, step 2 is going to find my posture and my position. So I feel comfortable creating the line with this sort of angle right here, and I feel comfortable creating the line going in this direction, which is going to be step 3. So after I got my posture correct, I have my shoulders, my elbow, my wrist, everything comfortable the way that I need. Step 3 is going to be to make sure that I'm creating the line in a comfortable direction. I feel more comfortable creating the direction this way as opposed to this way. So this is also something that we do need to consider when we are creating lines. Step 4, I'm making sure that I have good ink flow. So right now I went back and I dipped the needle into my ink cap to make sure that I could make it from point A to B with proper ink flow. Step 5 is going to be considerate of my needle angle Step 6 is going to be to have proper needle depth. Step 7 is to align my hand speed to my voltage. That needs to be proper. Step 8 is going to be to have a taper in and out of each and every line that I create, which are small little tapers that are hardly noticeable, but they contribute to a smoother read. And step 9 is going to be to move my elbow and my shoulder as opposed to my wrist. So let's go ahead and do this all in unison. 1, identify point A to B. Make sure my posture, my position is comfortable. Step 3, comfortable direction. Good ink flow. Step 4, proper needle angle. Step 5, proper needle depth. Step 6. Step 7, proper hand speed to voltage. Step 8, small taper in and out. And step 9, create the line using my elbow to my shoulder and not my wrist. And a taper out slightly at the end, as you can see there. All of these steps have to work together each and every time we apply a line, and I think as a beginner this is really easy to overlook. It is a lot, but all of these steps kind of happen in conjunction. It's kind of like a domino effect. We can't really apply good lines without one of these steps, and that's just my opinion. For you it may feel different. Again, I'm going to identify my point A and B. So my B point is going to be like a taper out around here. Here's my A point, taper in. Same thing. Posture, position, comfortable direction, good ink flow, proper needle angle, proper needle depth, proper hand speed to voltage, taper in and out, and move my elbow to my shoulder. All of that works in conjunction together. If I am out of line, even with, like, for example, my hand speed to my voltage, you see in the results that we get. So we can't expect any sort of good quality results with the basic fundamental techniques unaligned, or let alone not being familiar with them. So as you can see, we wipe away. These are two different lines, but we can't tell. They are reflecting one another in terms of line weight integrity. They are also cleanly applied with minimal trauma to the skin. We are getting in and out. Same thing, here's another one. So here's my A point. My B point is going to be where I started. Make sure that my posture and my position is comfortable. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to turn the skin this way. And then from here, comfortable direction, good ink flow. I'm going to get a little bit of ink here. I want to make sure I have good needle angle, proper needle depth, align my hand speed to my voltage, taper in and out. Create this with my elbow to my shoulder. And all of these happen simultaneously, like so fast that we may not even realize it. And they kind of hold their rule until we are done. So once we put the needle into the skin, these rules apply. Once we kind of take it out, you know, we're done following that set of rules. And this is going to be over and over and over. There we go. So let me go ahead and repeat the steps here, and I'll go ahead and say them out loud again. So we want to identify point A and B, position and posture, make sure that we're comfortable with that. Moving in the direction that's comfortable, which is step 3. Step 4 is good ink flow. Step 5 is proper needle angle. Step 6 is proper needle depth. Step 7 is aligning hand speed to voltage. 8 is to taper in and out. 9 is to create it with the elbow and shoulder, which is how I feel comfortable. So you can see I'm going to taper in right around here and commit right here. And at this point, I hope that you can kind of spot all of the steps that I'm explaining and how they work each and every line that's created. I am running at a lower voltage, which allows me to move at a slower pace. For me, I like to move at a slower pace because I get to minimize the amount of mistakes that I would have made. Not only that, I also get to move at a slower pace for the workflow, which is going to cause less trauma to the skin. Less trauma to the skin could be potentially less pain for the client. So if I can just move a little bit slower, which would take a little bit more time, and get those results in theory, I'm going to go ahead and go that route. These series of steps will be repeated over and over and over until I've completed this entire tattoo. I feel like it's also these series of choices that I'm making that are going to also yield better results. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this again. So let's do this part of the leg. Identify my point A and B. Posture position, which is step 2. Step 3 is comfortable direction, good ink flow, proper needle angle, proper needle depth. I'm gonna go ahead and do hand speed to voltage, make sure that's aligned as well. Taper in and out, create it with my elbow to my shoulder. I understand that may be a lot, especially if we're just starting out, but I feel like it's better to know about these fundamentals versus not knowing what to look for. You also don't have to learn all of these in one day. You can come back every day of the week if you want and watch this video, so that way it really stays with you. Take notes if you like as well, but you can see that it's going to be these exact steps that I use over and over and over again to accomplish clean, solid, consistent, saturated results. This technique right here has proven tried and true for me. It's worked each and every time. It doesn't really matter how thick or thin the skin that I am tattooing is. I can definitely do this on pretty much any surface that were to come my way, whether it's fake and or human skin. Some other and not so common ways that I want to touch base on that we could be experiencing, unwanted results and not even know it, is let's say if we hang out our needle way too far, then we put ourselves in a position where our needle begins to wobble because it doesn't have any sort of stability. I want to see if I can kind of recreate a needle wobble here so I can show you what that looks like. But I hung out my needle way too far, and off the bat I see a whole bunch of different adversities here, a bunch of unwanted results that I wasn't experiencing with the other needle depth that I was just using, or the other needle hang setting. But we can see here that there's already unwanted adversities. It's not as neat. I'm not sure if you can see that, but the needle kind of snags. And I'm going to go ahead and do these roundabouts to see if it kind of stays in place or if we're getting wobble. But the point of this is we may be setting our needle out a little too far if you're noticing like wobbles in your line, especially if you notice that your hand is consistent. Your hand could be consistent, but if your setting is too far out, then you're going to get inconsistent results, much like having inadequate ink flow. So sometimes we can be doing things correctly in terms of from a technical standpoint, but if our settings are still not correct, we could still be getting unwanted results. So if you're noticing little wobbles in your lines, maybe take a look at your needle depth settings here and hang out your needle, take it in a little bit and don't have it so far out. Another not so common reason that I've seen produce unwanted results, especially when it comes to lining, is simply not being comfortable with the gear that we are using. So holding the machine, for example, in an adverse way can produce unwanted results. I've seen many different holds. So for example, if I'm out here holding the machine like this and trying to tattoo, kind of like this here, then I can't expect any sort of consistencies. Or can I? Either way, we would never want to hold our machine like this, let alone be seen holding our machine like this. So my point is simply not being comfortable with the gear that we are using can definitely produce unwanted adversities. I can hold the machine like that. I can hold the machine like this. Either way, all of these ways are unnecessary and adverse, and these are ways that can definitely contribute to producing unwanted results. So this is another way that we would not want to hold our machine. It doesn't matter if I'm getting kind of semi-good results here. What matters is this sustainable? Is this something that I can do long term? Is this a good practice? Probably not. So early on, we want to figure out what is comfortable for us. Early on in my tattooing journey, I use my finger right here to kind of help brace my stability, which I would recommend if you're just starting out. So if you're uncomfortable with needle depth, you can use your finger like this, and this method proved tried and true for me. This method gave me enough experience to know how the ink is deposited, and then from there I feel we have more experience and information to further adjust our workflow so that way we can create cleaner lines. So this is exactly how I started. It still feels just as comfortable as it did when I started. For me, I kind of just started advancing. So I can tell that this right here, for example, you can see that I wasn't comfortable using the gear, but I started getting more comfortable. So if you're not comfortable, then this is a good place to start. I'm right-handed. I have my thumb right here. I have my index finger right here. And then the other three right here. and then I put this finger right here. I always keep it away from this needle tip so I don't get close. I have it like right around here on this dip right here. And then when I create the line, I use that. So I put my finger down, and then now I have access to my depth here. And then I can create this as cleanly as I can. And this was a technique that I used when I started, and this was basically like a stepping stone. I used this technique to gain an understanding of how I can deposit ink into the skin cleaner, let alone just to learn how ink is deposited into skin. So now I do it with, I feel a little bit more freedom. My hand's not so on the tip right here. What I do is my middle finger moved up here now. My index and thumb are still right here, and these are still in the back. So now you can see that my middle finger is connected with these last two, and that is what's structuring my needle depth. Now I no longer need this finger here to brace me because I've advanced and I now have a better understanding as to how ink is deposited. So through my time of practicing, I'm able to develop and hold my machine like this. And now I've had this question asked a lot. I'll make another video on this, but you can see that as I advance, my technique changed, and I'm able to tattoo like this. This is how I feel comfortable tattooing now. And then I would just simply repeat this technique over and over and over, following the 9 fundamental rules that I've been sharing with you, and hopefully you can kind of spot them out at this point in the video. But I feel like this is a great place to conclude this video here. These are some common reasons as to why you may not be experiencing the lines that you are going for. So if you're having trouble with your lines, you may want to go back to the basics, try to do some of the exercises that I expressed here, whether it's improper technique, angle, depth, ink flow, your settings. Try to adjust some of these areas here and see what happens. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop them down below. You can also send me images if you'd like via IG or email, however you'd like, and I could probably give you some feedback to let you know if you need to slow down or speed up. I also have a Patreon which allows you to ask unlimited questions, submit feedback if you'd like, submit images for feedback if that's something that you're looking into. You can go ahead and message me with any questions that you may have, and I'll go ahead and respond. This will be like a 24/7 thing that you have access to by becoming a Patreon. But you can kind of see though, I'm going to repeat, as I mentioned, this 9-step process over and over and over and over until I have completed this entire tattoo. There's nothing that's going to change from here on out besides the areas that I deposit the ink into. My position will change, my posture will change a little bit to accommodate for the new areas that I will be tattooing. In terms of the technique from a technical standpoint, this is it right here. With that being said, I also feel like this is a great place to conclude this video. Once again, if you have any questions at all, I definitely encourage you to drop a comment down below. I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. I ask that before you go, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring that bell for me, as I will be bringing more videos like this for you all. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone if you think they might find it helpful as well. With that being said, I thank you for watching. I appreciate you, your time, and your support. Have a great day. Are you wanting to develop your tattooing skill sets? Now you can practice and develop anytime, any place with an assortment of tattooing workbooks that I've created. With these assorted tattooing workbooks, we can practice our basic lining all the way to advanced lining. We can practice shading, shading placement, dot work, textures, and more. All we are gonna need is a tattoo workbook of mine. We can use a pencil, pen. We can even use a tattoo machine with a ballpoint cartridge to develop our tattooing abilities further. That means that we don't don't need tattoo ink, we don't need napkins or petroleum jelly to get to practicing. Simply open one of my tattooing workbooks and get going. It really is that easy. You can get your hands on one of my developmental tattooing assorted workbooks by simply clicking the links in my description or in the pinned comment section below, or navigating on over to Amazon.com, typing in Daniel Yuck, and you'll see all of the assorted tattoo workbooks that I've created come up. If you have an Amazon account, be sure to follow my Amazon author page as well, as I would greatly appreciate your support. Should you have any questions at all, drop them in the comment section down below. I will do my best to assist you in the best possible direction.
I know that you won't give up. I know